Hey, what's up, guys? How you doing? It's me, Mr. 4K Upscaler. You know, some of you have been asking me, since I have all of these VR headsets, what is the difference between HTC Vive, Oculus Rift, and PlayStation VR? Well, in terms of pricing, they're all different. Right now, the Oculus Rift, it's a clear winner competitor towards PlayStation VR because it's only $400. However, you will need a beefy PC, so therefore, technically, it's not a true winner. Because you're still going to have to spend $700 on the PC, or maybe $800 on the PC, plus the $400 on the Oculus Touch. This is the Touch right there. That's the Touch controllers. So you will have to spend close to $1,200 to enjoy Oculus Rift, okay? But it is a competitor to HTC Vive. HTC Vive, on the other hand, it's $800 plus the $800 beefy PC, so you're looking close to $2,000 just to experience HTC Vive. PlayStation VR, on the other hand, it's $400. You still need to buy a Touch, not the Touch controllers, the PlayStation Move controls, which are right here. That'll cost you another $100, so that's $500 plus the camera. So you're looking at $550 plus tax. On top of the PlayStation 4, you can use a regular PlayStation 4 if you want for $300, but still it's gonna cost you $800 or roughly $900, close to $1,000, right? This is like an ideal choice to go with, obviously. The cheapest, probably the cheapest choice to go with. But once Sony PlayStation VR reduces their prices on the VR headsets, then you will be able to have $400 console and $300 PlayStation VR for like $800 altogether. Look, either way, what I'm trying to say here is VR, it's not cheap, okay? It's still expensive. I mean, you're still looking at roughly $1,000, whether you go with the PlayStation VR, whether you go with the Oculus Rift, or whether you go with the HTC Vive. The only, look, even Gear VR, it's still going to be an expensive experience. People say, well, what do you mean Gear VR is going to be an expensive experience? Because you have to buy a phone. You have to sign up a 2-year contract, $800 phone, Samsung Galaxy S7 or S7 Edge. So even Gear VR, it's not a cheap route to go with. Oh, look, the VR headsets are still expensive. Getting into the VR, it's still expensive. It's not cheap by any means. So I just want to clarify that. So if you want to get into VR, it's not going to be the cheapest thing ever. It's still there, but it has its positives, it has its negatives. So let's talk about the negatives first before I jump into the positives. All of these headsets, whether you got the Oculus Rift, whether you got the HTC Vive, you're going to have truckload, and I do mean truckload of cables. Just look at these cables. Look at all this. Cables. Cables. Cables tracking devices. Cables tracking devices. Cables, big giant tracking devices. More cables tracking devices. Some more cables and more devices for you to plug into. Some more adapters, power adapters to plug into. Some more power adapters and controllers to plug into. More and more. Look, you guys get the idea, all right? The problem is there's a lot of cables, and that's something you're going to have to deal with all of these VR headsets. Doesn't matter which one you get, you're going to be dealing with a lot of cables. But which one of these three has the most cables? HTC Vive. HTC Vive, I swear to God, It took me nearly 15 to 20 minutes just to unbox this thing. To get all the cables out, to get all the adapters out, to get everything out, it took me nearly 20 minutes. That's not to mention how long it took me just to install this thing. To install it took me another 30 minutes. These sensors right here, which work really good, I had a really hard time, screwing this in because of the drywall that I have. I don't have those cement walls. This is a drywall. You have to put both of these sensors, you have to put them opposite of each other across the room in order for the thing to work. And then you have these gigantic controllers that have their own mini USB charging kit that comes with it. Alright, so the question that you guys want to know, the answer to the question that you guys want to know is, well, which one is the best? Well, it's really hard for me to give you that advice because it will depend on your own preference experience. Like which one feels more comfortable. I know people that feel more comfortable holding the Oculus Rift, and I do have to admit, Oculus Rift, it's lighter and feels a little bit better. HTC Vive, it's heavy. I mean, I'm not gonna lie, when you put this on, it's heavy, but it feels much cleaner, like, because it has that AMOLED screen. That AMOLED screen makes the quality look more cleaner. And but the one benefit that you will get, the reason you're paying a higher price for the HTC Vive, it's because of the tracking. Tracking on HTC Vive, it's really smooth. The room scale, you can move left and right. You can go anywhere, man. You feel like you are really in the virtual reality. You have so much freedom to move around. You can still do that with the Oculus Rift. All you gotta have is 3 different tracking cameras, 2 up front and 1 in the rear, and you will be able to kind of achieve the same thing, but still, the HTC Vive has better sensors and much better movements. It's more fluid. It feels more natural. In terms of quality, honestly, they have the same resolution. The only difference, as I said, is the screen. This one has the AMOLED screen. This one doesn't. PlayStation VR has the OLED screen, so it looks really nice. So it really, it depends. PC has more VR games. They have more simulation experiences on there. And especially HTC Vive. If you go with the HTC Vive, you're going to have a lot of simulations that you can experience this with. They have a lot of accessories that you can use, like a body armor, tracking, gloves, guns, all sorts of different things that you can use this on. So HTC Vive, it's definitely, in my opinion, it's the most advanced VR experience that you're going to get. Oculus Rift, it's a pretty good entry level into the VR. PlayStation VR, it's definitely the cheapest route to go with for the consoles. Honestly, this is like the cheapest way you can go with. Both of these right here, you're gonna need a beefy PC. You're gonna have at least i5 3rd generation or 4th generation processor. You're going to need at least 16 gigs or 8 gigs of DDR4 memory. I prefer 16. And you're going to need like a 970 or 980 graphics cards just to start. And then, even then, no one can guarantee you that you're going to have a good, smooth experience. So you really have to do your homework before you purchase either of these headsets. The one thing I will mention, however, about the HTC Vive, you are going to need a lot of room. Before you spend your money on HTC Vive, make sure that you check your room, where you're going to be playing this. If you have an extra room, an empty room, or an empty space somewhere, put it there, man. Put it on that empty space so your friends can come in, and that way they don't bump into anything. You can put a carpet or a mat finish. A mat, put like one of these mats, one of those like jiu-jitsu mats you can put on that floor. So it can be a much better experience, because you will need a lot of room, man. If you put this into a living room where there's a bunch of couches and tables and shit like that, you're going to hurt yourself. You're going to hurt yourself. And big warning, do not put it there. Put it into the empty room. If you have an empty room, like some extra space somewhere in the house, put it there, because if you don't, you will hurt yourself. You're going to fall down. I'm telling you, man, because your brain's going to forget. Your brain's going to be telling you that we're in this other world and we have to walk here and there. But then in reality, you're in this other world. But then in reality, in the real world, you're going to fall down and hurt yourself because you have tables, couches, and obstacles. Make sure you clear your room, man. I cannot emphasize enough. Clear your room. And also calibrate it properly. So what else I can say? Again, VR technology is still expensive. It's really hard for me to recommend either or. This is still expensive. All right, all of these technologies are still expensive. All right, they're not cheap. So, bottom line is this: if you can do it, if you can afford it, if you can buy it, go ahead and buy it. If you already have a beefy PC and you can get this for like $600 on eBay or something, or $500 on eBay, go for it, man. Or go with the Oculus Rift for $400. But if you don't, you have to consider how much you're going to be spending on it, and then you have to consider your room scale, like where are you going to be playing this on? How much space do you have? And then you got to ask yourself, what type of games do you want to play? If you're into flight simulation, and let's say you're building a, let's say you're a big X-Plane 11 fan, and you love flight simulation, you got the whole flight rig set up and everything with controllers and joysticks and everything, then yeah, this is definitely going to be a excellent accessory to that for you to use, to immerse yourself into even better experience, okay? Or if you're into iRacing and you need to have a VR and you race a lot, you got a racing wheel, very expensive racing setup. So yeah, these two will definitely come in handy. They're definitely going to immerse you into a much better experience. So it is really hard for me to recommend right out of the bat, because it's not that simple. But if I have to recommend, if someone would have to ask me, hey, which one gives you the best tracking and best immersive experience, I have to say HTC Vive. HTC Vive definitely has better tracking, definitely has a much better screen, clear screen. You know, it's an AMOLED screen, AMOLED screen, and the tracking is just better, man. It has better sensors, and there's no latency, there's no lag when you move your head left and right. I did notice some of that lag with the Oculus. With this one, there's barely any goddamn lag, man. Everything is smooth as it can be. And that's what you want in virtual reality. You want smoothness, just like in real life. When you're moving your head up and down, left and right, it has to be natural, it has to be smooth. But, you will have a headache. This will not be fun. I'm going to tell you this right now. If you have any questions, if you're having a hard time, you know, you can either go to the HTC Vive tutorials. They'll explain everything. Or there's a truckload of YouTube videos where you can find out how to do this properly. I highly recommend that you check those instructions, YouTube videos, before you start installing this yourself. Okay? Because it'll be a pain in the ass unboxing everything out of the HTC Vive box. And it's going to be a pain in the ass installing the HTC Vive. It's going to be an hour, probably hour, 15 minutes process. But once you finish that, once you calibrate everything, then the experience is going to be much better. Again, the experience will depend on your PC. Do you have a beefy PC? I have a beefy PC, so for me, it doesn't really bother me that much. And I can always upgrade to 1080 Ti. I have the amplifier. I can use my amplifier and upgrade to 1080 Ti on their external graphics card. But not at the moment. I don't need it. You know, it's not necessary. But in the future, I can. You also got to make sure that you calibrate your VR headsets properly. The reason a lot of people don't have a good experience is because they don't calibrate properly. What does the calibration mean? It means your body needs to be measured. What's your height? Are you 6'2", 5'2"? The floor needs to be measured. The ceiling needs to be measured. The room needs to be scaled properly. Once you have achieved all of that, then you're going to have a much better VR experience. Now on to some other things. You know, a lot of you have been asking me, hey man, how come you're not doing any more TVs? How come not doing any calibrations? Well, at the moment, I think I calibrated everything there is to calibrate. I think I showed everything there is to show about the OLED TVs. I showed you all the tests. I went through everything on the OLED. I don't know if there's anything else I need to cover in terms of OLED TVs. I had tried 3 different OLED TVs. C7, it's clear winner for the price over the A1E. It's a clear choice. You don't have to go with a 65. You can go to 55. But if you choose to go with a 65, I would recommend you wait for the Thanksgiving, wait for November, and get it for $2,800. Yes, for $2,800, you can get that 65-inch and enjoy yourself. You know, start saving some money, people. That's how you're going to buy that thing. There's just nothing else for me to calibrate. You know, and in terms of movies, look guys, I don't do movies reviews. That's TechnoDad, that's Spare Change, that's Brass Stacks in the Bitch. These 3 guys do an excellent job doing that. They do a 3-way review, so check them out. They're awesome. I highly recommend you check those guys out. They do an excellent job on reviewing the 4K movies. So TechnoDad, Brass Stacks, and the Spare Change. These 3 guys, I know all 3 of them. They're awesome. Go check them out, man. They do an excellent job for 4K movies reviews. Check them out. But for professional calibration, I recommend a Vinny from UK. He's a professional calibrator. He has sponsors, the company he's with, and he get all of these TVs every month. He gets to review everything from Panasonic to Sony to LG to Sharp to Vizio. He gets also invited to the extra access to some of these TVs to test them out, to calibrate them, stuff like that. So AGTV Tests, I recommend him. So me, if there's like what I basically do, if there's a new game out and I think I can do some better calibration with my own 2 eyes, then I'll do that video. I'll calibrate that video. But at the moment, there's nothing coming out, you know. I might do a Destiny 2 when it comes out and see what I can do with that, you know what I mean? But at the moment, for right now, there's nothing coming out, right? The month of July and August is just dead in terms of gaming. You know, there's nothing coming out, honestly. So, I might do Ghost in the Shell, show you the calibrations, do my own picture settings for the Dolby Vision Ghost in the Shell. I might do that, you know, when the Ghost in the Shell comes out. We'll see how that looks. But for right now, I'm just going to do some live streaming. Tonight, I might do some Star Trek Bridge Crew. And Friday the 13th, it should be very funny, man. We'll check that out. Probably like around 8 o'clock, 7 o'clock. I might do that late in the evening when everybody comes home. I know for some of you who live up in UK, it's going to be at night. But if you're not working over the weekend, I guess you can stick around a little bit for like an hour or 2 hours. See, you know, the stream. Or you can watch the stream when it's done, when it's recorded. You can check it out. Remember, you don't have to watch the entire stream. You can skip. You know, you can go skip from one chapter to another chapter and check out the funny stuff. All right. So there you have it, guys. It's been 20 minutes. I just wanted to do this quick overview to give you my opinion on the VR headsets. And look, it's still expensive. Bottom line is all of these VR headsets are still expensive. VR, it's still expensive. It's not cheap. But if you have to go, if you have the money, go with the HTC Vive. It will give you a much better experience. Well, there you have it, guys. All right. Have a good one. Take care. Bye.